Hello everyone. I'm glad to see you on my channel. The story I'm going to tell you today is pure. It is true that all the bad things that happen in life happen for a reason. It is said that we can appreciate the good things, the things when they happen to us. I hope you enjoy this story. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience.
"Daddy, help!" came Anna into the hallway. She held up her blouse, set her bag down, and herself slid down the wall to the floor. What happened? Ran up to her father. "I don't know, I don't feel well." Help me to the bed," she told him. "Come on." He threw her arm over his shoulder, lifted her in his arms, and carried her into the room. "Bring a drink, please," his daughter asked him. "Now, I'll do it right away." He ran to the kitchen. Anna took 2 big sips and leaned back on the pillow. At that moment, her father saw that her pantyhose were torn. "Anna, tell me what happened." He looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. "Daddy," she cried and cried into his palm. "Anna, talk. Don't be silent." He was already impatient. What could have happened? "I was attacked by some man. He grabbed me. I didn't even have time to do anything. I didn't even have time to shout." "And what did he do to you?" He shook his daughter by the shoulders. "Daddy." Again she bumped into his palm. The father understood everything. The daughter was in a very bad way now. She needed his help. John sat staring at the wall and realized that he had to go and apply. And while Anna was still in the bath, it was possible to get the biological material that had done this to his daughter. But at the same time, the man knew it would hit his reputation. He wasn't the last man in their town, so he had his doubts. "Anna, get ready. We're going to the police to file a report," he told his daughter. "No, Daddy, what are you doing?" She grabbed his pant leg. "Then what will we do?" he asked her. "I can't bear the embarrassment." "Imagine, everyone will find out," she told him. Then the man sat on her bed. And now, while the case was hot on his heels, he decided to ask her everything she had seen. "Do you remember anything?" he asked her. "No, he was in the back. I didn't see anything at all," she replied. "Yes, that complicates matters." Her father shook his head. He decided that he should find out and find whoever had done this anyway. John and Katie met when he came in from the army. There were a lot of people gathered to meet him then, and the girlfriend dragged the girl there as well. She immediately liked the young man. He also paid attention to her. Already in a week they started dating. He walked her home, read poems to her. Everything was very harmonious. Young people loved each other. He was from a family of doctors, so he had no other thoughts of enrollment than to go to medical school. "John, what about me?" Katie said to him at the time. "Why, you'll get in too." He was sure. "I don't know anything about it." She looked at him with surprised eyes. "That's why you go to school, to learn something," he was sure. There was still some time left before the entrance exams, so the guy began to pull up the girl in subjects. And as he said, everything went well. Both got in, and now together they were studying to be medics. Of course, they would have liked a life together, something else, but it wasn't customary, and so they lived in a dormitory, in the same but different rooms. "Katie, let's go out." John would call her after school in the evening. Of course she agreed. She was always interested in him. John knew a lot. He told very interesting stories. Katie realized that once she fell in love with this man, that was it, forever. She didn't need anyone else. This was her man, the one she would love for the rest of her life. "Now we'll graduate, and we'll get married right away," John promised her. She kissed him on the cheek. It was so nice to realize that there was a man you could really rely on, and who would not betray you at any moment. Combining study and love, time flew very quickly for the young people. They studied during the day and went out in the evening. It was the most beautiful time. And then came the moment when John came to Katie's parents and asked them for their daughter's hand in marriage. "Darling, will you marry me?" he asked her. "Of course, my love. Why do you ask about it? We decided it long ago," the girl told him. Everything was good. Parents helped to organize a holiday. Everything was wonderful. Katie spun around in a wedding dress. Then they were hard to get, so her father, who was always traveling on business trips, brought her a white long dress. She was very beautiful. John, when he saw his future wife, he just stood, looked and smiled. He could not believe why he was so lucky. The wedding was held. The young people began their labor activity. Quickly they got an apartment. Now it was possible to think about children. John and Kathy wanted it very much. He dreamed of a girl, she dreamed of a son. Sometimes they even dreamed of having two at once. One day Katie fainted. At first, they even rejoiced that maybe it was the first time that she was pregnant, as they both worked in a hospital. The husband immediately called an ambulance and they took the girl to the hospital. It turned out she had a rare disease. They couldn't diagnose her for a long time, and then they didn't know what drugs to use for treatment. There were a lot of obstacles. John did everything he could to save his beloved, and at some point, he decided that maybe the sea air and sunshine would do her good. "Kathy, we're going to the sea," he said to her one day. "What if I get sick?" she asked him. "It's okay. I'm with you," he hugged her. "Yes, my love, I agree," thought the girl that it would be a wonderful vacation together with her husband. They flew in, settled down, went to the sea every day. Kathy looked sickly. She was pale. She was constantly nauseous, something else. But John supported her in everything, and she smiled. And when they came back from vacation, the sudden news to both of them was that Katie was probably expecting a baby. To check this out, she was admitted back to the hospital. Yes, indeed, she was pregnant. How worried John was because he didn't know how the pregnancy would affect her illness. It seemed to have receded, but it was still very worrying. "How are you doing?" John kept asking his wife. She looked at him and saw that he cared. Strangely enough, the whole pregnancy the girl was not bothered by anything. No nausea, no toxicosis, no fainting spells. On the contrary, she got a blush on her cheeks. It seemed like she was on the mend. Kate was feeling very well indeed. Before she went into labor, she had asked John herself to make arrangements with the doctors to have her admitted to the hospital. All was well, and the labor went the same way. Their long-awaited daughter Anna was born. Mom and Dad were very excited about her arrival into the world. John was ready to carry his two favorite girls in his arms. He did everything for them, went to work, earned money, brought some gifts, took them to the sea, everything, just to make them smile, and never sad. And suddenly, when Anna was 4 years old, Katie got sick again. There were those attacks again, fainting spells, low blood pressure, and everything else. The doctors did what they could, but at the time there was little anyone knew or could do. Then John decided that he would take her to a clinic in the capital, where she would definitely get help. But even there, the doctors were just throwing up their hands and saying they didn't know what to do. When John and Rita returned home, they took Anna away from her grandmother's. Now the girl was almost constantly only lying down. The daughter, though she was small, but she could help. She brought her mother tea, gave her some pills when she needed them. And of course, John supported the whole family. That morning, he took Anna to kindergarten and drove himself to work. He thought he'd be back in a couple hours to check on his wife. He did this every day because he saw that Kathy was already feeling very ill. It hurt that he couldn't do anything to help her. But after 2 hours, he couldn't go back because there was some complicated patient and his help was needed. And when he picked up his daughter from daycare that evening and they drove home with her, Katie was no longer with him. Beloved, he rushed to her, but there was nothing he could do to help her. "God, why is it so? How could it happen?" He cried over her bed. Anna understood everything too. But what could she do, a little 5-year-old girl? After the funeral, John took a leave of absence from work. He closed in on himself. The love of his life was gone. She had always been there for him in times of need. She had always supported him. What had happened to her? Why did it happen? He blamed himself for a lot of things. Anna went to live with her grandmother for a while. She realized that Dad needed to get away from the stress he had experienced when his wife died. A month passed, a second month began, and John still couldn't come out of mourning. "So, my dear," his mother came to see him. "What?" John raised his red eyes to her. "If you don't stop what you're doing right now, you won't see your daughter again either. I'll get custody of her, and she told him and threatened him with her finger. It was only then that John realized how much his daughter needed him, that she alone missed him. He promised in 2 days to get ready, to give up all addictions, and to come for her. And he didn't cheat, he did. Now the father and his little daughter lived alone. Yes, it was very hard, but there was no other way out. John asked both grandmothers to help him in some way, and then they agreed that 1 week one grandmother would be with Anya, and the second week the other. It was convenient for them and for John, because with his duties he couldn't take her to and from the kindergarten. Everything was going great, although John thought it would be very hard. But it really wasn't, because his parents were helping him. Now John wanted to be with his daughter, and he had to do everything at work because he was promised such a future there. He could not refuse it even in favor of the fact that by doing so, he could provide his daughter with a decent future. And now he was here and there. "Son, don't you think you've gotten yourself into a rut?" his mother asked him once. "No, Mom, I'm fine," he told her, because he was. "Look how thin and pale you've gotten. Maybe you could find yourself a woman." Maybe she wanted to talk about it, but John didn't want to think about it. It had been 4 years since Katie died. That's why his mother had brought it up. "I'm sure I'll never find anyone better than the one I had with me," he told his mother. That was always the end of the conversation. In reality, John had a lot of women who liked him. Everyone wanted to be with him. The nurses, the women who worked in surgery with him, they just all gave him attention. "Here, John, I've brought you some cakes. I made them myself. I came to work alone." "Oh, thanks, Selena. Put them there. I'll try them later." He looked up at her. "Okay." She looked at him, put the treats where he said, and left the office. "John, why are you sitting there? Let's go home." A coworker came up to him. "I'll sit a little longer." "Go away," he told her. The man paid no attention to anyone. He really didn't care about anyone. "Why are you so stiff?" his mother asked him. "Mom, we've talked about this 100 times. I told you I don't want anyone but Katie," he told her. "I don't understand you." His mother sighed and backed away. John understood that he needed a hostess in the house and Anna needed her mother, but he also understood that he couldn't be with anyone else. "John, I'll set the table tonight. Lucy promised to come over," the woman said. "Lucy who?" He looked at her. "She's the daughter of a good friend of mine. You know how smart she is. Good. I advise you to consider her," said the mother, while she took a tablecloth out of the closet. "Consider her for what?" John asked her. "What do you mean? The bride, of course," his mother told him. "Mother, you and I have been talking, and it's no use. I'm saying I don't want anyone." "Well, just today look at each other, talk. What if you don't know where your destiny is?" insisted the mother, and she didn't care what her son said. "All right, take your Lucy." He didn't want to argue with his mother, and the woman thought it was a sign of agreement. She cooked something, made pies. Everything was ready for the guests now. And then in the evening, a woman came through the door. There was no other way to put it. John looked at her and saw that compared to Rita, she was heaven and earth. He looked at his mom, smirked, but out of decency, respect for the girl, he couldn't say anything to her. They went into the room, sat down at the table. Grandmother took Anna by the hand and led her into the room. "Well, Lucy, what are you doing?" John wanted to ask her. "Working." She was embarrassed. "Don't be embarrassed, it's all right." He could see that. "I'm not embarrassed." She tried to be brave in front of him. "Well, if you don't mind, let's have some wine," he told her. "Okay, I don't mind," she replied. "Come on then, I'll toast you." John raised his glass and they drank. 2 more hours of idle talk went by. John said something about his work because he had nothing else to say, about his daughter, what a clever girl she was, studying at school and everything else. And Lucy sat there, twirling her napkin in her hands, not looking up at him. "Why don't you say anything?" he asked her. "I don't know what to say," she shrugged. "Shall we go home then?" he asked her. "Yes, I guess so," Lucy murmured quietly. It was obvious that she didn't want to be here anymore. They left the apartment. John walked Lucy to her house. They said goodbye, and he knew that he and this girl would never meet again, and even if they did, it would be just as long-time good acquaintances. "Well, how are you, Lucy?" asked his mom, who was already waiting for him on the doorstep. "Mom, please don't," looked at her with a tired look at her son. "John, you are silly. You need a mistress in the house," she told him. "But what can I do if I can't see anyone but Kathy in front of me?" he told her honestly. He continued to work, his daughter always by his side. And one day he was coming home from work and decided to go to the store. When he stood in line, saw that there were practically only women around him, grinned. The one in front of him took a couple loaves of bread, milk, 2 packs of something, probably butter, a couple cans of condensed milk. John stood there wondering why she needed so much. Probably a big family waiting at home. And when he paid for the groceries he took, he headed for the exit. The woman was standing on the porch. She looked back at him and quietly walked down the steps. The man saw how hard it was for her to carry her bag. Like a well-mannered man, he wanted to help her, and just as he was approaching, an insolent man ran past. He grabbed the woman's purse and ran forward with it along the sidewalk. John shouted after him and ran after him. They looped between the houses, jumped over some fences, and on the lawn, John caught up with him and hit him in the jaw. The young man went down. He grabbed the bag. "It's not good to steal." He turned to him and walked back with quick steps. And the woman sat on the porch of the store. She wasn't going anywhere, just crying quietly. "Here, take this." John came up to her. "What? You caught up with him?" She was surprised. Of course, it could not be otherwise. John took the bag, in which there were groceries, with the other hand helped the woman to get up. And they walked together. And I'd already know how upset I was. Just today I got my paycheck. I thought everything. "A month we will sit on water and bread," she said, wiping the remaining tears from her face. "But now everything is fine." Calm down, he felt sorry for her. And when they reached the house where the victim lived, they stopped near the entrance. "Thank you again." She stopped talking because she didn't know what to say next. "Oh, yes, my name is John," he told her, remembering that they hadn't introduced themselves to each other yet. "And I'm Cindy," she told him. "You see, what a beautiful name you have." He didn't know what it was about this woman that attracted him, and as he turned to leave, Cindy called out to him. "John, wait." She came up to him, and now she was smiling for some reason. "Yes, I'm listening." He turned to her. "Look." She showed him that the sleeve of the shirt was almost completely torn off. "Oh, I didn't even notice it." He was trying to put it back on. "Come on, let's go back to my place and I'll fix it," she replied. "You know, I'm in a hurry to get home. My daughter is waiting for me there. You didn't hide it from her." "Let's go, it won't take long, while you have a cup of tea. I'll do everything," she promised him. And John agreed. They walked into the driveway, went up to the floor, entered the apartment. The place smelled of medicine, a smell John wouldn't mistake for anything else. Cindy led him into the kitchen and put the kettle on. She asked him to take off his shirt and went somewhere in the room. The man saw the kettle boiling. He got up, cut the mugs himself, poured the brew into it, put sugar in it, and added boiling water. Cindy did come back quickly, and her shirt was as good as new. She took a seat at the table, handed him what she had just sewn up. "Excuse me for asking, is someone sick?" he asked her, realizing he could probably help. "Yes, my mom is very bad. She hasn't gotten up in a year. She just lies there. I take care of her. I give her shots and pills," Cindy began to say, and her face became very sad. "Can I see her?" he asked and got up to go to the sink and wash his hands. "Are you a doctor?" She answered his question. "Yes, I work at the local hospital in the surgical department," he answered her. "Wow, of course, Cindy fussed. She took John's hand and they went into the room. The woman was lying on the bed, and it was obvious that she was in pain, because every now and then her face turned into a grimace that could not be mistaken for joy. "Hello, my name is John," he leaned toward her. "Mom doesn't talk well. She won't answer to you," Cindy said for the woman. "That's okay." He looked at Cindy's mother. She handed him the medical history. The man shook his head, realizing that there was really nothing more to be done here. "So what?" The woman understood the pain her mother was in. She could hear her moaning. "Would you like me to get you some strong painkillers?" "Yes, I can't cure your mom, but at least I can relieve her of this hellish pain," he asked her. "Sure, if it's possible, I'd be very grateful to you." After that, they went to the kitchen, finished the tea that John was making, and then they said goodbye. John went home, and all the way home, Cindy was on his mind. He got home and his mother was there already cooking dinner. They sat down at the table. "What are you like today?" his mother asked him. "Like what?" John didn't understand. She said to him, "What are you like?" "You know, of course I may surprise you with this news, but today I met a woman," smiled at his mother, thought to himself that how long she dreamed of hearing these words from his lips. "Yes, and what?" The woman immediately revived. Nothing yet. I don't know why I was attracted to her, why I approached her, but she made me feel something," he told her. "John, that's good. That's great. Bring her to visit. We'll get to know each other." His mother started dispensing advice again. "Okay, Mom, stop. We're just getting to know each other. What happens next is unknown." He didn't want to get ahead of himself. Even though Cindy had dictated her home phone number to him, John hesitated to call her for a long time. He wondered if it was a bad time, if she didn't like him or something else. But most importantly in his mind, he realized that he liked Cindy. When a week and a half had passed, he finally made up his mind and dialed her number. He was at work that day, walked over to the nurse's station, picked up the phone, and was now waiting for Cindy to answer it. "Hello," a woman's voice answered, and he realized, even though there were two women living in that apartment, it was definitely Cindy because her mom couldn't get up. "Cindy, hello, it's John bothering you," he said to her and waited for her to answer, because maybe she didn't recognize him. Maybe it was all for nothing. "Yes, John, how are you doing?" She sounded happy. "I'm fine. I thought long and hard about whether to call or not, but I decided to call," he said, and then he stopped talking. "Yeah, it's good to hear from you too," Cindy said. "Would you be willing to meet me at a cafe this weekend?" he asked her. "Why not? As long as it's in the evening and we don't stay out too late, of course I would," she said. "Then I'll be at your door on Saturday at 7, he answered her. "Okay, I'll be waiting," she hung up, and John thought she was smiling now. He didn't know how it had come about himself. The man already really thought that he would devote his whole life to his work, as well as to his daughter, and would never meet anyone again. After all, sympathy and love are things that are not done on purpose. But here it was, a chance meeting in a store, and it was just like that. When he thought about it, his heart sank in his chest. He realized that he had fallen in love. On Saturday, as promised, he arrived at Cindy's driveway at the appointed time. She was already sitting on the bench. "Hello," he said to her. "John, why so formal? We're both adults." She stood up and smiled. He noted that she was getting ready for their meeting. She was wearing a beautiful dress, her hair was styled in a wave, and she was wearing makeup. He was now convinced that he really liked this woman. They walked to the cafe, talking a lot on the way. As they sat there, John decided to ask her everything directly. "Cindy, I realize you have a sick mom, and I have a little girl at home. If you and I are going to join our fates, we need to think about where we're going to live," he told her, and looked her straight in the eye. "Wow, out of the blue?" She asked a question, and after that she could not stand it and laughed. "No, I do not offer you anything now, and do not say, just I liked you very much, and if it really happens that we will be together, then this question will be relevant," he told her. "Yes, I understand that I cannot leave my mother, but you also understand me," she raised her eyes at him. "So, apart from the fact that you would not leave your mother in trouble, in the rest, you agree with me?" John smiled, and in his heart he was jubilant. "Of course, I don't know you yet, but I think you're a good person, and I wouldn't mind continuing to talk to you." They were sitting like two schoolboys, exchanging compliments. John and Cindy smiled in each other's faces. They both realized that she liked him and he liked her, but there were all sorts of obstacles in life that needed to be discussed and resolved. As the evening drew to a close, John touched Cindy's arm and offered to walk her out. "Yes," she nodded. They left the cafe, made their way back to her house, said goodbye warmly at the driveway, and agreed that he would call her again. John was walking home. He was very happy. Today, he was going to tell Cindy that he thought he would never meet anyone and never have a woman again. And now that she caught his eye, he couldn't imagine that if back then at the store he had walked by, there wouldn't have been all this. Cindy was at home thinking only of him too. About this man she'd met by chance. She had been married before, but unsuccessfully. Her husband had left long ago. They were divorced, and now she was devoting all of herself to her mother. She was sitting in the kitchen tonight, drinking tea, looking out the window, and remembering his words about how he had said they would be together. They met the next time John had a day off work, and then another and another. "Cindy, I want you to meet my daughter," John once told her. "I don't mind that at all," she replied. By this time, her mother was so ill that she couldn't be left at home, and John had helped to get her admitted to a hospital. Now she and Cindy were visiting with her, and today, when John offered to introduce her to his daughter, the woman just exulted in her heart. They came to his house. As the man had warned the mother, she had already set a small table. The young people walked into the room, sat down on the sofa. At first, everyone sat in silence. Anna looked at the woman. The woman looked at her, but the grandmother was most interested. "So, you're not afraid to get together with a man who has a child that old?" she asked Cindy, because that's what she was worried about. "You know, absolutely not. I love children, and of course I wanted to have one myself. But God didn't give it to me, so." She looked at Anna. "I liked you right away too," the girl told her. John was very pleased by her answer. He didn't know how she would take his new fling, because in fact it was a betrayal of her mom. But the girl was happy to communicate with Cindy, and after a while John offered her to move in with him. Cindy took some time to think about it, but not 3 days later John came and said she was packing her bags and he wasn't waiting for any second thoughts. It was decided, done, and now they were living in the apartment as a family. John sent his mother home, and she herself went there with a calm heart because she saw that her son had found a worthy woman who was ready to do everything for him. Now, whenever Anna needed help, she turned to Cindy. At first, the woman was afraid, but now she saw that the girl really accepted her, and not just like that, but with all her heart. And she stopped worrying that something might happen. They got along very well with the girl. John was glad things were working out this way. Somehow he got in the mood, took a couple days off work, went to the store, bought a ring, and came home. "Dad, what are you doing with flowers?" Anna was surprised. "I wanted to surprise Cindy," he told her. She was cooking something in the kitchen and John and his daughter came in. "Cindy, I'm sorry to be in this environment," but he got down on one knee and handed her the flowers, and in his other hand he held a ring. "John, are you serious?" She looked at him. "I couldn't be more serious. I told you before, I didn't think I'd meet anyone else in my life, but since you've gotten into my heart, I can't do anything differently," he told her. "God, of course I agree." She hugged him and pulled Anna close to her and took her in her arms too. "Okay, girls, I've taken the day off work, so I'm taking you to a very nice place," he said. Of course, John had taken care of everything in advance. He had made a reservation at the restaurant, and now they were on their way there. "This is where he would propose," Anna said quietly to him. "I thought about it too late, so now we'll just celebrate here." Her father put his arm around her shoulders. They spent the evening well. The woman and the man looked at each other with loving eyes. Anna saw this and was happy for her father. She liked Cindy too, so now she dreamed that they would have a real family. In the evening they came home, all talking about something, and then sent to bed. Cindy, Anna, stood in the kitchen doorway the next day and looked at the woman with big eyes. "It's okay. Come here," the woman called to her and hugged her, realizing that the girl had accidentally said the word to her. She had nothing against it, but knew that both she and the girl needed to get used to it. "Say, can I call you that?" Anna looked at her furtively. "Sure, if you're comfortable with it, call it what you want to ask me." Cindy was fine with it. "I wanted to ask you how you would prepare for the wedding. I'm so curious about everything." The girl circled around her and bombarded her with questions. "I'll definitely ask your advice. Can we go to the store together this weekend?" Cindy asked. "Sure," the girl said excitedly. Now John was off to work and didn't have to worry at all about what would happen when. Cindy was going to her mom's house to tell her about her soon-to-be wedding. The woman never got any better. With each passing day, she was withering before her eyes. Her daughter only asked her to live to see her wedding because she wanted so much to go to her daughter's house. Everything went on as usual, and it was very good. "Dad and Mom and I are going to the store this weekend to buy a dress," Anna told him in the evening. "What?" He turned to Cindy and smiled. "Yes," she nodded her head. "Mom?" Now the man was looking at the girl. "You wouldn't believe it, but she started calling me that right away for some reason." She realized what the man meant. It didn't take long to pick out a dress. It wasn't fancy. It was a simple, light-colored dress. Cindy twirled it around in front of the mirror. Anna sat there, a look of displeasure on her face. "What did you like?" the woman asked her. "Well, I wouldn't say it's bridal," Anna said. "Well, to make it bridal, we'll go with you now and buy a veil," the woman told her. And they really went to the store and bought a beautiful veil that matched the color of the dress. Now they had everything ready. With John, they had already gone to the registry office, filed the application. All they had to do was wait for the day they would be married. Those were the days that everyone remembered as kind and happy. John's mother was at the signing and Anna was also there. They decided not to call anyone else. Then they went to the hospital to see Cindy's mom. She even smiled at them. Afterward, they stopped by John's co-workers, who also congratulated the young ones. In the evening, they sat in the same restaurant where they celebrated the marriage proposal, and then they went home. "I'm sorry, dear, that I didn't make you any wedding trips, but I can't get away from work," John told her. "It's okay, we'll still have time to go somewhere else." The woman came over and snuggled up to him. And indeed, after that, every summer they went to the sea. The girl grew up, studied. Everything in her life was good. The years flew by quickly, so Cindy decided to ask Anna where she was going to go. "Daughter, you're in ninth grade. You'll soon have to choose a profession. What do you want to be?" she asked her. "I don't know, I haven't thought about it yet," shrugged her shoulders. "Well, how can it be? Soon you will have the last call in the ninth grade, and you still haven't decided," said Cindy and looked at Anna. "Well, I'm going to go to the 10th grade too," answered the girl. "Okay, we'll talk then." Cindy didn't bother her. Cindy and John were getting ready for last call. They were both happy for their daughter. The girl was going to her grandmother's house for the summer. She had a lot of friends there too. The 10th grade started without any adventures. Everything was as usual. Studying began. Now it was not so difficult because mostly they repeated everything that had been spent in previous classes. Now Anna was studying and was already thinking that maybe she wanted to become a doctor too. "Are you sure about that?" her father asked her when she told him that. "I don't know for sure yet, but such thoughts pop into my head," she told him. "Good think, because you will not notice how time will fly by and you will already be taking your final exams," the man told her. On that warm May day, Anna's lessons were over. She and the girls ran out into the schoolyard, talking about something. "Let's go for a walk," one of the girls suggested it. "Why, we can even go to the river," suggested the second one. "Maybe we should go home and change?" Anna asked them. "Why waste time on this? Let's go like this," said the friends, and they all headed towards the river. There the girls took off their shoes, went into the water, dabbled, splashed, laughed. It was a lot of fun. Then they put their sandals back on and went for a walk around town. "I wish we had ice cream now," Veronica said. "Yes, I'd like some ice cream too," Naomi said. "Wait," Anna opened her bag and looked in the pocket. Cindy was always slipping her some change so she could have some pocket money. And indeed, there was enough for 3 cups of cold treats. They bought some, sat on a bench, ate ice cream and kept talking. "Oh, girls, vacation is coming soon, and it's already 11th grade. I don't even know where to go," said Veronica, who once dreamed of becoming a teacher. But now this dream has disappeared. "I've decided that I want to be an accountant," Naomi said. "I don't know what I want," sighed Anna. "Don't worry, everything will be fine. You will go there, and the realization of what you want to become will come by itself," Naomi reassured her. "Yes, maybe so," Anna agreed with her. It was getting cooler and cooler outside. The girls decided to walk a little more. They admired the lights, which were so well visible from the bridge. "It's beautiful here," Naomi said dreamily. Yes, the girls were enjoying the cool of the evening. It was almost 11 o'clock. "Should we go home?" Anna asked. They started to get ready to go home. "We are so far away from my house," said Anna. "So come on, we'll walk you a little bit. We'll walk together later anyway," the friend suggested. Naomi and Veronica lived in the same house on the other side of town. "Okay, if it's not too much trouble," Anna told them. "Of course not. We'll take another walk. We don't feel like going home," the girls said, and they all walked together towards Anna's house. When it was only through the park, the friend said goodbye and the girl went alone. She quickly walked along the sidewalk. Although it was dark outside, the streetlights illuminated everything. There was almost no one near. When the girl was already quite close to her house, she decided to take a little shortcut. There was a small courtyard here. There used to be some organization there, and as she went through it, she would come straight to her entrance. Just as she turned there and took a couple steps, someone grabbed her from behind. At first she wanted to scream, but her throat was squeezed so hard she couldn't. "Shut up!" She heard it over her ear. Anna was shaking so much, she didn't know what to do. She was only afraid of one thing, that he would kill her. The rapist was breathing heavily. Anna was pierced with a pain like she had never felt before in her life. Only a few minutes passed, but for Anna they lasted a very long time. After that, the man pushed her away from him with force. She fell face first into the ground, hit her elbows and knees hard, and could not recover for a long time. She got up on her knees, then stood up and walked to the entrance. She realized to herself that it was her own fault for taking the shortcut. If she had walked around the house, none of this would have happened. And now she was sitting on her bed complaining to her father about what had happened to her. He was grabbing his head, not knowing what to do. When Cindy came in, they decided they weren't going to file a police report. Her father, as a doctor examined her, nothing serious was injured. Naturally, the girl didn't go to school the next day and then just lay in bed for 2 more days. Cindy didn't leave her side for a minute. Then the girl pulled herself together. She tried to forget everything that had happened to her. She went to school again, but now she ran home right after school. No matter how her friends persuaded her, she didn't listen to anyone and didn't go anywhere with anyone. Her parents were worried about the girl's mental state, but did not interfere with her with advice. Summer vacation began, and once they went out of town to relax, Father made a fire. It was decided to roast meat. But as soon as Anna smelled the roast, she felt sick. Cindy asked her. She was worried about the girl. "I don't know, I just feel sick," she replied, and ran toward the bathroom. So turned Cindy to John. She made such eyes that he immediately understood everything. "Are you for real? This can't be." He looked at her and seemed to be in shock. "What are you talking about?" Anna came back to them. She didn't know what they were talking about. "Say, did you have a delay?" her father asked her. "Daddy," she looked back at Cindy, searching her face for support. "Yes, baby, he's right," answer. She told her and nodded her head. Now Anna understood what her parents were talking about, and she understood about the delay too, because she really hadn't had anything that month. They slept here tonight, and the next day in the morning, John put everyone in the car and they drove to the hospital. He arranged for a doctor to examine his daughter without disclosure. It was done, and indeed it turned out that Anna was expecting a baby. Now they sat at home in the kitchen, all three of them, and did not know what to do. If they gave birth, it would mean that their whole future would go down the drain. No education, nothing. "I don't want this child," said the girl. "Okay, it's settled. I'll call the doctor tomorrow and he will abort you," her father said. Cindy sat and looked at her husband. She felt sorry for everyone. The next day they drove to the hospital and the tests were ready. The gynecologist called John away to talk. "John, you see, your daughter is R negative. If we abort her now, something could go wrong in the future," he said, not looking at John. And again, he clutched his head. What if it turned out to be true? And what to do next? She would never forgive him. He called Cindy away and they talked, and it was decided to keep the baby. "No, Daddy, I don't want this baby. It wasn't conceived out of love." His daughter screamed at him. She was hysterical and wouldn't listen to anyone. "My girl, listen, if the doctor is right, then you may have a child with some pathology," soothed her father. They still managed to persuade Anna to bear and give birth to a child. "My dear, you will get used to him. You will talk to him now. You will feel how he pushes you with his legs. And then you will know that he is really yours and not someone else's," she said in a soft voice. "Okay," Anna said then. She trusted Cindy and knew she wouldn't give her bad advice. Dad kept working. It wasn't easy now. It was the bad 90s, so the hospital was bringing in not only decent citizens, but others who were willing to pay any kind of money to have surgery. John did this, but he justified to himself that he was doing it as a doctor, not as an assistant to someone. Anna went into 11th grade in the fall, but she couldn't hide the pregnancy for long, so John went to the school. He arranged with the teachers that his daughter would graduate with an externship. She was now homeschooled and only turned in assignments to the teachers. The pregnancy was going well. There were no abnormalities, only in the last few months. Every week Anna had to take tests and see a doctor because she was RH negative, but it didn't bother her much, so she did everything as it was supposed to be done. A week before the due date, her father persuaded her to go to the hospital, and she listened to him. Now the mom-to-be was in the hospital, and she was doing great. "How are you, daughter?" He looked in on her. "Yes, everything is fine," she answered him. "Well, everything is fine, so soon I will be your grandfather," smirked the young man. On the one hand, he was proud to be a grandfather at such a young age, but on the other hand, he was a little offended. But once it happened, nothing could be changed. On the due date, Anna gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. The boy was named Harry. He was big and healthy. Grandfather was very happy. His colleagues congratulated him. Grandma came to the discharge. Everything was fine. Just as Cindy had said, Anna had fallen in love with the boy, and now she couldn't imagine having an abortion. They were discharged. They went home. They all lived together now. While the son was little, Anna never left his side. Cindy helped. John did too. When her husband was around, everything was fine. And when Harry started walking, Cindy decided to have a talk with her daughter. "Anna, come here," she called to her after the boy was put to bed. "Yeah, Mom? What do you want?" She went into the kitchen. She poured a cool morsel, which was always made in a carafe, and sat down opposite. "Look, I'm home all the time anyway. Maybe you could trust Harry to me and go to school yourself. What's the use of wasting time, she told her. Cindy loved the girl like her own, and she wanted the best for her in life. That's not a bad idea. If you agree, I'd love to try it, Anna told her. That's why I called you here to talk, the woman told her. They both smiled. They sat for a while longer talking. Cindy didn't need to be taught. She had been by their side since their grandson was born, seeing everything Anna did. You could say they were learning all the skills of a young mom together. Anna asked her father to help her get into medical school. What's there to help? Her father asked her, if only the institute. Oh, Dad, I'm afraid that I won't be able to go to the institute, at least to finish college, the girl told him. Well, let's see what tickets you have, he told her. Cindy started pulling out some manuals, notebooks, books, and indeed, on some evenings when Cindy was putting Harry to bed, father and daughter would sit in the kitchen and peruse the medical literature. But Anna was still worried because the exams had been very easy and straightforward. She passed everything and was admitted. Now she traveled every day to study. The college was in their city, so the girl studied full-time. Cindy and the baby at home, her father at work, Anna studying. Everyone was busy. Often when the girl came home and she and Cindy were in the kitchen cooking dinner together, the woman would look at her sadly. Mom, why are you sad? She would ask her because she was worried about the woman too. Anna, why do you stay home all the time? You should go out and take a walk, Cindy told her. She'd been thinking about the subject for a long time. Okay, she doesn't want to go out with young men, but she can go out with her friends. I don't want to, the girl answered her, and her mind immediately flashed back to the memory of the night when the scary thing happened to her. She was afraid it might happen again. That's why she never went anywhere, ever. Don't think about it. Everything will be fine, the woman told her. She thought, maybe take her to a counselor. Yes, I know, but how to get it out of your head? Only if you erase the memory, sighed the girl. She continued to study, and already at the end of the first year, they began to take out to practice in the hospital. It was interesting, but not for everyone. Many just could not stand it all, and just left. They were sitting in the corridor, waiting for the doctor. A young guy walked by. He had crutches in his hands. Apparently his leg was broken, and he was carrying some books under his arm. At some point the books fell out, and he looked at them confusedly, because he realized that he had no way to pick them up. Now, Anna jumped up from her seat and helped the boy to pick up all the books. She first wanted to shove them back to him, but then she decided that he wouldn't go anywhere far anyway, so she decided to walk him out. Thank you, he waited as she tucked the books under his arm. I'll help, she said. The guy smiled, walking further down the hall. Anna followed him. They reached some kind of office. It turned out to be a mini library, which was organized by the doctors themselves, so that the patients would not be bored lying here. Here we are, here I take books. The young man turned to her. The girl saw his blue eyes and a beautiful smile. Wow, the girl looked at the racks that housed the books. Yes, first the doctor started to bring books from home, and then the patients who had already been here started to bring something, the young man told her. I'm Anna, she gave him her hand. And I'm Max, he shook it. Nice to meet you, she smiled and wanted to leave the office. Wait, the guy stopped her. What? She turned to him. Maybe you can help me carry the books back too, he smiled back at her. Sure, it's no problem, he chose something for himself, handed it to Anna, and they headed for his room. When they passed the place where the girl sat with her classmates, there was no one there. Why are you so sad? Max asked her, noticing that the girl had changed in her face. Because of you, I don't know where my comrades are studying now, she told him. And what, you regret it a lot? He grinned bullyingly. No, she shrugged, realizing that they were told practically the same thing in every class. Then let's go and leave the books and go outside and talk, hit some fresh air, he suggested. Okay, she didn't argue with him. Anna and Max went to his room. There were several other people lying there. She said hello to all of them and then put the books on his bedside table. They went out and headed for the exit. On the street, the girl wanted to help him, but Max refused. He himself reached the bench, which stood in the shade of the trees, sat down there. Anna followed his example. So you're studying at the medical school? He asked her. Yes, she answered. I see, and here I was playing soccer, and it so happened that my leg could not stand. He tapped the cast on his right leg. Wow, and you are professionally engaged in this sport or so? She became curious. she had never met a soccer player. No, they sent a team from the institute, so I volunteered, he told her. They talked for a long time, and after Anna promised him that she would come tomorrow and went home, because it was useless to go to practice. At home, she checked what her son was doing. He was playing in the playpen, so she went in there. She decided to talk to Cindy. "My girl, what's wrong? You're all bloating and smelly," the woman asked her. She always noticed when her daughter's mood changed. "Mom, I think I'm in love," she said and blushed. "What? What do you mean?" Cindy didn't understand. "Well, don't you know how it is?" The girl smiled. "Is it one of your classmates?" Cindy asked, even though they had recently talked about the subject, and Anna said she hadn't considered anyone in her group because they were all younger than her. "No," she shook her head and looked puzzled. "Who is it then? You don't go anywhere at all." "Only to study." Cindy couldn't understand. "We met him today, quite by chance at the hospital when we had an internship. I helped him carry his books." Anna began to tell her. "Just like that, you saw him once, helped him, and then you fell in love?" The woman didn't understand her. "And you and Dad, remember?" She looked at her. "Well, yes, indeed," she did not argue with her. "Mommy, and what should I do?" asked Anna. "I don't even know. Talk to him some more, and then you'll understand yourself," was a confused woman. The next day, Anna sat through the lessons, and then, when they went to practice, she again did not go with her classmates and quietly knocked on Max's room and went in. "Hi." He put his finger to his lips, indicating that the other people in the room were asleep. "Hi," Anna whispered, and showed him what was waiting for him in the hallway. He got up, grabbed his crutches, and walked out to where the girl was. "I've run away from practice again," she told him. "Well, good for you." Of course, he wasn't happy about her skipping practice, but the fact that she had come to see him made him very happy. They went outside again, talking. "When are you discharged?" the girl asked him. "I don't know. The doctor promises that the other day, and I hope so. I'm tired of lying here," he told her. Good. Anna was glad that they could meet on neutral territory, and she would finally start attending practice. Today, as yesterday, they sat on the bench for a long time talking, and then when Anna had to leave, she decided to tell Max everything right now. Let it be true, so that there would be no lies between them. Also, they'd only known each other for 2 days, and it wouldn't hurt so much if they had to break up. "What are you doing?" stared Max at her. "I really liked you, but I can't keep one thing from you." She sat back down on the bench with him. "Speak," he looked at her. He couldn't even guess what she would say. "You see, I have a small child," she said quickly. "How old is he?" the young man wondered. "A little over a year," the girl answered him. "Well, and that's fine," he told her. "Yes, you won't even ask how I got it?" asked Anna. "It was before me. What do I care? If you agree to be together with me, I will accept him as my own. I think he's too young to realize in the future that I'm not his father," Max laughed. "What's so funny?" Anna asked him. She felt a little uncomfortable. "We've only known each other for 2 days, and you tell me such stories, and I say high-minded words about my parents," he answered her. She wanted to kiss him on the cheek, but changed her mind, turned around and ran home. Her face was burning. She couldn't think of anything else but Max. The next day, she was at the hospital again. Anna warned him that she would go to practice and then come to see him. "I'm being discharged today, so I'll be waiting for you in the courtyard," he told her. "Okay," she replied, and went with everyone else to see what they were doing. When it was over, she went outside. The young man was really waiting for her on the same bench. Even though he was still in a cast and on crutches, they walked with him towards the park. "I don't want to go to this park," Anna said. "Why not?" He didn't understand. "I just have bad memories of it," she answered evasively. "Okay, let's go and sit somewhere else," I answered her. They went to some yard, sat down on a bench at a table, and again sat and talked. Their conversations were about everything and nothing serious, some simple general topics. "It's so interesting with you," Anna said to him. "And me with you," he answered her. From that moment, the guy and the girl started dating. She was so eager to introduce him to her dad and Cindy, she told him so. And now they were just waiting for the right time. It had been a month since Max had been released from the hospital. Anna was on vacation by this time. Tonight, she was sitting in the kitchen where her father was having dinner. She wanted to ask him when he could take a day off or if he would have a day off so she could bring Max home. "Why didn't you say something before? I would have taken another day off, the man told her, who had been wishing for a long time that his daughter had met someone. I don't know, I thought you didn't have time, Anna shrugged. When her father announced to her the day he would be home, Anna immediately told Max everything. They bought a cake, flowers, came to visit the girl. Cindy prepared a lot of delicious things for the table. They waited for the guests. They decided to sit in the room, because little Harry walked not yet confidently, and there everyone could support him. Hello, I'm Max. The young man shook his father's hand and gave flowers and a cake to Cindy. They introduced themselves too, and then the boy leaned over and took Harry in his arms. That's it, let's go to the room, Cindy said and went there first herself. They sat and talked, and in the evening when Max left, the father looked at his daughter approvingly. Yes, I think this will be a worthy beau, he told her. From that moment, Max began to persuade Anna to rent an apartment and move away from her parents, but she did not agree because she was comfortable that Cindy was sitting with Sergi and she did not want to leave them. I'm used to living like this, Anna often said, looking lovingly at her young man. They continued to meet, and only a year later, when Harry went to kindergarten, Anna agreed to move in with Max. Now they had a real family. Max had even proposed to her. They decided they weren't going to have a wedding. No one needed it. Anna remembered how she and Cindy had picked out a dress for her, and now Cindy had gone to the store with her, and they were picking out a dress for her. A beautiful cream-colored dress, which suited the girl very well, had been purchased. And on the appointed day, Max, his mom, Anna, John, Cindy, and Harry were at the registry office. Everything went quietly. After the registry office, they went to a cafe, sat for a while, celebrated, and then went home. Anna graduated from college. She got a job at the polyclinic in the registrar's office. Max was making good money, so she didn't want to go anywhere else. With her father and Cindy, they got along very well. Harry went to kindergarten. So, after work, Anna stopped by to visit her parents. To her surprise, everyone was home, her mother and father. In an hour, it was necessary to go to the kindergarten for Sergi, so she decided to spend this hour here. They all sat in the kitchen, and after Cindy went to her room, wanting to lie down. Dad, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I know you're still holding a grudge against that scumbag who caught me in the back alley. You remember you asked me if I saw something or if I didn't remember. I remembered. It just came to me randomly. I don't even know why I didn't tell you about it then. She lowered her eyes and didn't look at her father. And what is it? After all, indeed, in all these years he could not forget what had happened. Then I remembered that he had a tattoo on his arm, said the daughter to her father. Well, who doesn't have tattoos? The man said. No, this one had an unusual one, like the magazine of a machine gun. She didn't finish because she saw that her father had been electrocuted. So, go on. He looked at her. And inside this magazine is written Kalash, but the machine gun itself is not. She told, and she herself did not understand what about, but she saw that her father directly shook. John just got all twitchy. He jumped up from his chair, went to the window, then poured himself a glass of morsel, drank it in a gulp, sat back down and clutched his head. Papa, what's the matter with you? Anna didn't understand. What happened? I know this man. He raised his eyes to her. How, from where? Looked at him, daughter. Anna, please go home. I need to be alone, her father told her and got up to see his daughter off. She left and he went back into the kitchen. Cindy realized her husband had something going on. She went in and asked him how he was doing, but he told her he wanted to be alone. He sat at the table in the kitchen, and moments from his time in the army came to mind. Here he was, young. His relatives saw him off. He came to the unit, where first there was a training camp, and then they were disbanded. It was exciting, because the guy was all alone. He arrived at his destination, jumped on the ground. Hi! A young guy like himself immediately came up to him. Hi, he shook his hand. Austin, he introduced himself. John. The guy answered him. The new friend showed him where, what and how he had arrived the day before. They immediately began to socialize. Drills, marching throws, friends were together everywhere. They went to the mess hall together too. In a few months, the guys became best friends. Kalash, hi, Austin said to him one day when they were getting ready to shoot. Why Kalash? He didn't understand. John knew that nicknames were given to almost everyone. What's your last name? Austin looked at him. Both, John told him. Well, Obwamo means Kalash, the friend concluded. Don't you think it's weird? John asked him then. No way, it's a normal nickname, Austin said and laughed. The officers came to the center of the formation and the most important one started to speak. At first, it was something about valor and honor, about the war in Afghanistan, and at the very end he asked if anyone would be willing to volunteer to go there, to the very scorcher. If there are those willing, step forward, he announced then. Everyone was afraid, but almost everyone stepped forward, and John and Austin could not distinguish themselves. They too stepped forward, and now the preparations are underway, and then they're getting on the airplane, going somewhere. Austin, are you scared? John asked him. He said quietly, but none of the boys showed any sign of being afraid. When they were brought to the site, they were first housed in the training area too. There they were to be taught how to shoot, how to run, up and down the hills, and everything else. John and Austin stuck together here too. They helped each other. And then the time came when they were thrown in where the real fighting was going on. It was very scary, but the boys kept going. They saw that there were tents. There was nowhere to hide. They were told everything, how to do everything. The military, who had been here before them, told them some of the nuances. It was a week before Austin, along with John, stood sentry at night so that no one could get into their camp. The boys were already exhausted, sleepy, and hot. Suddenly they heard some movement up ahead. Suddenly, they saw spirits crawling on all sides. Austin, a grenade, shouted John and tried to cover him with his body. But he failed. There was an explosion. Then everything started happening very fast. Nobody understood anything. Those who were in the compound ran out. There was gunfire. John felt bad. He couldn't hear or understand anything, but he could see that Austin was even worse. A piece of shrapnel had hit him, and now blood was gushing from his leg. He grabbed him and dragged him somewhere without realizing it. There were some bushes ahead, and he dragged his friend through them. John, I can't. Leave me. At that moment, John saw that there was a wound in his stomach. He pulled his leg with a belt to stop the blood and put a flap he had torn from his t-shirt on his stomach and held his friend's hand to keep him there. Then he dragged him on, even though he was nauseous, dizzy, and confused. At some point, John lost consciousness. He woke up in the hospital. He was lying on a bed with a bandaged head. He also got a lot, and something was wrong with his leg. He looked around. He could not move his eyes. He was very dizzy. At some point, a nurse came into the room. Please tell me, is my friend alive? He asked her. Oh, are you awake? She shuddered, not noticing it at once. Yes, thank you, said John. And who is your friend? She walked over to his bed. Austin, he told her. Yes, he's alive. He had an operation. He's in the next room, she told him. John leaned back on his pillow, smiled. He was glad Austin had survived. Toward evening, when the dizziness had more or less passed, he decided to go to that next room and visit his friend, but he wasn't allowed to at the time. Later they did meet, but it was many days before they did. That day the boys were being prepared for discharge. John was lying on the bed. He heard some noise in the corridor, movement, even someone arguing. The next moment the door to his room opened, and with a crutch on one leg Austin came skipping in. Kalash, hello, he shook his hand. They wouldn't let me in. But how did they let you in? He told him. You heard what was going on in the hallway. I don't think I'll ever get in. His friend smiled at him. They talked to each other for a while. Then Austin sat down on the chair beside the bed and looked at his friend. What are you doing? John asked him, because he knew he had something to say. Look what a local craftsman made me. Austin rolled up the sleeve of the sweatshirt he was wearing, and there was a tattoo of a machine gun store, and inside it was written Kalash. Why? John looked and smiled. I'll never forget what you did for me. It turns out you saved my life and I owe you now, Austin said. John was then surprised that they had done all this right in the hospital. After they were discharged, their service came to an end. They were taken home, and afterward, if John remembered it, it was like a bad dream. The next time he saw Austin was in a completely different role. It is not known what happened in his life, but he became one of those gangsters who roofed the organization, markets, and other businesses. And now, when Anna told him about the tattoo, he didn't believe anyone else could have one, so he knew for sure it was him. Tears streamed from his eyes, his fists clenched. How his father wanted revenge, but now he didn't know where to find him, and what he was up to was scary. But John swore that he would meet him anyway, and then he would take revenge on him. As the years went by, Anna continued to work. She and Max lived a very happy life. Money was scarce, but they kept at it. Then one day, Cindy suggested they move in together. "There's plenty of room for everyone, but you'll save a lot of money," she told them. "We should think about it," Anna answered her. Then she realized that it would be much easier for her. "The grandson will always be under supervision," the woman almost begged. When Anna spoke to Max, he only shrugged his shoulders. "If it's convenient for you, and you want it yourself, I don't mind," he told her then. And after a while they packed their things and were all together again. John, too, was glad to have his daughter and son-in-law living with him. Harry went to school. He was doing well, and Cindy was helping him with a lot of things. Anna was always there for him too. Now she and her mother were like two best friends. They always did everything together, never had a fight or quarrel, not even a dispute between them. If one of them suggested, the other agreed, and vice versa. Father continued to work. Now he was proud of both his daughter and his grandson. Previously, Anna was afraid that since Harry was born of a criminal and could become the same, but now she saw what kind of Cindy he serves. At school he participated in all the subject Olympiads, and he also had good grades. His mother knew that this intelligent young lad would make a fine man. Max, as accepted on the first day of Harry, so after that supported him all his life. No one remembered whether he was born to one or not, and Harry didn't know it at all. The guy helped his parents in everything. He saw that it was difficult for them, so he did everything that depended on him. He finished school, and a concilium was gathered in the kitchen. John was leading it, with his father and Harry himself sitting right next to him. "So, grandson, have you thought about where you're going to go?" His grandfather asked him and laughed. "Of course, like I told you, I want to follow in your footsteps and become a doctor," he told him. "Yes, I've seen how hard you've been studying. If you want, I'll go with you to the institute," Grandpa told him. "No, I'll need your help at home. You can help me understand a little about medical terms," he looked at John. So they agreed, and while Harry was at school taking exams and preparing for them, at the same time he and his grandfather read a great many books. Grandfather told various things about his work. No one doubted that Harry would get in. And indeed, he got in. Now the whole family was glad. Max told Anna that they had already saved enough money they could buy an apartment. But Anna was in no hurry. She, like when he asked her to move in, didn't want to leave her parents. Let's wait a little longer. Maybe her son will need some help. She didn't want to spend money yet. Harry started school. Grandpa was always there for everything. If he needed any advice or anything, he was ready to help at any time. Today Harry was late. He was in a hurry. He ran across the road at a red light in the park, cut across the lawn, and when he was almost near the institute, a girl who was riding rollerblades crashed into him. They both fell. "What are you doing? Watch where you're going. You rubbed the bruised spot." "You watch where you're going." She couldn't get up. The guy laughed. He walked over to her, gave her a hand. The girl stood up. She was smiling too. "Okay, I'm sorry." Harry looked at her. He really liked her. He'd forgotten he was late for school. "Yeah, and I'm sorry too," she mumbled. The guy shook off his pants, saw that he had rubbed his jacket on his elbow on the asphalt, waved his hand and turned to the girl. "My name is Harry," he told her. "And I'm Christy," she answered him and kept smiling. "Christy, why don't we go out and have Okay, I'll be there." She nodded her head and went on her way. Harry was still late, but he didn't regret it because he had met a charming girl. He couldn't sit through the lectures. He kept thinking about that charming person who knocked him down. And it wasn't just literally, but figuratively as well. She was so tightly lodged in his head that now he was not thinking about any studies, but about whether or not she would come to the cafe. At exactly 2 o'clock he was there, sitting and looking at the door, and she was still not there. When more than half an hour had passed, the guy was completely desperate, but lo and behold, the doors opened, and there appeared Christy. "Hi again, sorry I'm late, but believe me, I was in a hurry," she told him. "That's okay, come on in, have a seat." He showed her to the seat across from him. She took the seat, and only then did they order. "What do you do?" "As I understood, you study at this institute." She looked out the window at the building that was nearby. "Yes, you got it right," he smiled. "And I'm in the journalism department. I'm doing an internship right now," Christy shared. They sat talking. Harry realized that he hadn't made a mistake in his choice. She really was not only pretty, but also a smart girl. After sitting in the cafe, they came out of there and decided to take a walk. Christy told a lot of stories. It turns out that she was brought up in an orphanage, saw what then happens to some children, and she made her way to the people. "Where do you live?" Harry asked her, thinking about walking her out today. "In a hostel," she said. "You were supposed to get an apartment, weren't you?" The young man wondered. "Yes, but when it was my turn to receive, there was no housing, so I was offered compensation. I didn't refuse. I got the money and paid for my studies with it," she said. "Are you hoping it will work itself out later?" Harry smiled. And why not? She too was glowing with happiness. From that day on, the young people started dating whenever they had free time, but vacation was about to start soon. They planned a vacation somewhere together. Harry, his mother called him home seriously. "What?" He was standing in the hallway, about to go outside. "I don't think you're telling us anything." Anna stood looking at him. "Mom," he blushed. "Why don't you bring her to our house?" Mom suggested it. "Okay, I will, but I think it's too early to do that." He wondered how his mother understood everything, because he didn't say anything. "Okay, go, and be careful," she kissed him. Harry was happy. He and Christy were now seriously together. And when school started up again, he invited her over for a visit. It was awkward. The girl was afraid to go to him. What happened? He didn't understand it. Well, many stories about mothers-in-law who do not accept girls from the orphanage, and you have two at once, mother and grandmother, she told him in all seriousness. "What are you doing? When you get to know my relatives, you'll think you've lived with them all your life," he told her. "Okay, if you say so, I believe you." She agreed to go visit her young man this weekend. That day, Harry bought flowers for his mother and grandmother. He wanted them to be happy. At home in the morning, he warned them that there would be guests in the evening. Cindy and Anna were getting ready for it. One was baking pies, the other was making salads. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Max opened and saw his son and a young girl on the doorstep. He smiled. "Hello," said hello to everyone. "Come on in." Cindy came out into the hallway. They all introduced themselves, walked to the room, sat down at the table. The conversation began. Christy was getting ready to be interrogated, where she was from, what she was doing. But it wasn't like that at all. John told various curiosities. Everyone at the table laughed. Anna looked at the girl and realized that she had a good heart. "Thank you very much for the welcome." Christy said goodbye. When it was time to say goodbye, Harry went to see her off. "You were right, you have a very kind and good family," the girl told him. "Thank you, I always tell the truth." Harry was pleased that Christy spoke so highly of his family. "Tell me, you have such a young mother. Does she just look that way, or did she give birth early?" She realized that it was curiosity, and maybe she would offend the young man with it. "Yes, she gave birth to me early." He didn't tell her anything more, because he didn't know anything himself. "I see." The girl understood everything. They reached the dormitory. There they said goodbye until tomorrow. Harry headed home, and there the whole family was waiting for his return. "Harry, where did you meet this miracle?" his grandmother asked him. "Did you like Christy?" He knew the answer, but he wanted to hear it. "Of course, smart, beautiful. I think she'll be a perfect match for you." Took his mother under his arm, and they all went into the room together. "Tell us about her. We just didn't dare to do it ourselves. We were afraid of scaring the girl," Anna asked him. What does it matter what she had once? The main thing is who and what she is now," said the young man. "Is there something terrible in her biography?" Max asked his son. "No, only that she was brought up in an orphanage. But Chris is so much afraid that when you find out, you will reject her," said Harry. "Oh, come on, it's okay to let her not even care," mouthed Cindy. "I'm glad you like her," smiled the boy. Everyone had dispersed now. Anna and Cindy were in the kitchen washing dishes. John and Max were in the room assembling the table. Harry was minding his own business. "Max, I need to talk to you." The next morning, the husband was eating breakfast with his wife standing by his side. Good, he was always willing to listen to her. "You said we had enough money saved up for an apartment. Maybe we could buy something for Harry." She looked at him. "And continue living here?" He looked up at her. "Yes, I don't think you're unhappy," she hugged him. "But then if they realize with Christy that they will be together, then we'll give them this surprise." Her husband kissed his wife on the cheek. "You're the best," she said in his ear. "That's why I love you." John continued with his labor. He had been through so much. He had been a simple surgeon, then chief, head of department. And so, today, he was being called up to the top. The man was very nervous. He knew what he was going to be offered, a chief physician, who worked before retired, and John was offered to take his place. After much deliberation, and after conferring with his wife, he agreed. Now the man was the head of the hospital. The whole family was proud of him, and he was pleased that he had never once snapped and left everything. "Well, grandfather, now I cannot worry about where to look for a job," hugged his grandson and smiled. "I'll see what you can do," the man joked back. "And I'll be sure to show you." Harry had been to practice a couple times before, where it was his grandfather who led it. The boy, as he stood there then, was very proud to be the grandson of such a man. With Christy, they continued to date. Harry planned to propose to her, but could not choose the time for this. Yes, and the girl made it clear that she was still young and did not want to hurry. So the guy bought a ring, and now it was always with him. "Harry, how are you doing?" Cindy asked him. "Can I talk to you?" He asked his family once. "Sure, talk. Why do you ask?" They were all surprised at the time. "Is there any way Christine could move in with us?" he asked, silent and looking at the others. "So, it is certainly possible, but where we all will be accommodated." Began to think relatives. It turned out that in the 3-room apartment, one room was occupied by John and Cindy, another by Anna and Max, and the third was the living room. It was the only place the young people could be. So what? He waited for the final verdict. "Let him come, it'll be crowded." "But we're used to it," Cindy smiled. Now she regretted that they had sold her apartment to buy a car. But at the time, no one had thought it would turn out like this. Tonight, Harry took Christy to a coffee shop he couldn't afford. "Hey, is today a holiday?" He and the girl met. "No, I just have something important to tell you." Harry gave her his hand and they went inside. They sat down at a table. Harry had already pre-ordered everything. They were brought some desserts and a small kettle of flavored tea. "Well, talk." Intrigued and silent, the girl looked at him and smiled. "Cress, I talked to my relatives yesterday, and no one minds if you come to live with us," he said to her in a rush. "What?" She didn't understand. "Well, what's the big deal? You and I have been together for so long, we can't afford to rent an apartment, and so constantly at a distance." He stopped talking, because he didn't know what to say next. "Harry, are you sure yours will take me well?" She was still afraid of that. "I've already told you that I have them good, and you'll see it for yourself," he told her. "Okay, I will move to you with one condition. Now I will not say that I'm leaving the hostel. I will leave the place behind me, and if within a few months I really like you, then there I will stay," she said. "Okay, I'll agree to your terms." He didn't mind that at all. The next day he drove to her dorm to pack up and head to his apartment. The grandmother and mother were welcomed cordially. The girl was immediately fed, drunk, shown where she would sleep, where the bath was, what was done how, and everything else. "I didn't even expect such a welcome," she told them honestly. "Come on, daughter, live it up. Also, you can have a good life," Cindy told her. "You are so good that now, remembering what they write about mothers-in-law, I even wondered if it was real." Christy laughed back. "Everything will be fine, don't worry." Now the women were smiling too. Life went on. Harry and Christy went to school. Anna did so and worked in the registrar's office. John hadn't stopped practicing after taking over the hospital. It was an ordinary day then, nothing portended trouble. John was sitting in his office, filling out some paperwork. At some point there was a knock at his office. "Yes, come in," he said. It was a nurse from surgery. "Hello, may I?" She looked in at him. "Valia, what's wrong?" He saw that the woman wasn't feeling well. "John, they're prepping a patient for surgery right now. They need your help right away," she told him. "Okay, I'll be right there. No need to be so worried," he mouthed to her. He put all the documents aside, got up from his desk and followed the girl. "You know, this is not a very ordinary patient," she told him. "What do you mean?" The head doctor didn't understand. Previously, if he heard such words, it means it was some bandit or brought with a bullet wound. "It's a simple homeless man," she answered. "One of the people on the street saw that he was sick. They called an ambulance and they brought him to us." "Well, a bum is a person too. He needs help too," John grinned. He came into surgery. He was immediately fitted with a gown, mask, cap, gloves. He cupped his hands, walked over to the operating table. The man lying there was really dirty, unkempt. He was covered with a diaper. "Okay, let's get ready for surgery," he said. Everything was ready, and when the nurse began to insert the needle into his arm, the surgeon saw a familiar tattoo. At first, the man froze. He couldn't believe they had met like this. It turns out he had to shake him again. A clip of an automatic rifle was tattooed on his arm, and inside it was written, "Kalash." "Here we are," the surgeon said quietly. His eyes slit. John realized he was about to cry, squeezed his eyes shut. He exhaled, and when it was safe to start the surgery, did whatever was required of him. His heart was beating normally again, and the surgery could be completed. But when it was already all sewn up, John told the staff that they were not completing the surgery, forbade them to do so. "What?" The anesthesiologist looked at him then. Now he took a thin scalpel and began to excise the tattoo that was on his arm. The staff gasped at this act. They didn't understand what their best surgeon was doing. But no one said anything. Everyone just stood there and remained silent. When the case was finished, he asked to treat the wound and only then finished the surgery. John walked out of the operating room. He had never felt so tired. He went to his office before warning the nurse that when the patient woke up, he would be sure to let him know. He sat in his office, unsure of what to do. It is clear that now he could not save him. But how could he let that happen after all? He had taken the Hippocratic Oath. Then the man decided to take a couple of weeks off. Anyway, during this time the patient he had just operated on would not get up. He wrote a statement, then came home and told everyone that altogether they were going to the sea. "Grandpa, I won't be able to make it," Harry told him. "And I probably won't either," Christy confirmed, because their studies continued. Anna took a vacation. Cindy had no one to keep her, so the three of them went because Max was working too. John didn't tell anyone anything. He wanted to talk to Austin first and then make up his mind. Here at the sea, he got up early in the morning, went out, sat on the sand on the beach, thought about something. His wife and daughter could see that something was happening to him, but they stayed out of it because they knew that at such times he would not say anything. And when it was necessary, he would come to them and talk to them. 2 weeks passed quickly. They were coming home. By now it appeared that everyone was rested. Anna, Cindy, and John at sea, the children in the apartment without them. Now everyone was together again and once again sitting in the kitchen drinking tea. The parents were sharing how they had their vacation at the sea. In the morning, John was going to work. He was very nervous before this trip because he realized that most likely today he would have to meet his worst enemy, whom he had dreamed of revenge for so many years. John arrived, called Betty to him, and asked her how the sick man was feeling. She informed him that he had already been moved to a regular room. "Good," John nodded his head. He got up, looked out the window, gathered his strength, and walked. He walked to the ward. Clearly, Austin recognized him immediately. He raised himself up on his elbows as much as he could. "Kalash, hello," he said something. "I'm not Kalash," John said, and looked at the other patients who were lying there. He asked them to get out of there. No one disagreed. They left the room. "Kalash, come on, it's me, Austin," he told him. "Now I see some bum in front of me," the doctor answered him. "Oh, it's a long story. I'll tell you all about it later," the man in the bed told him. "So now I did this operation on you, and it turns out that I saved you for the second time, and you scoundrel." John said to him, "What did I do to you?" Austin didn't understand. "Yeah, you don't know what you did to me, but I do," John said quietly. "And what did I do?" The sick man wondered. "Do you remember, many years ago in the alley near my house, you raped a girl?" He reminded him about that incident. "Oh, my wife left me then. I was very drunk, and I didn't realize what I was doing." Austin turned away to the window. "So that was my daughter," John told him. "How your daughter?" The man on the bed even seemed to shake. "Don't get so excited, you can't. It could get worse," the head doctor muttered. "I'm sorry, I didn't know about this. God, what have I done and what now? Is she all right?" asked Austin to John. "Yes, everything is fine. I'll tell you more. You have a son." Now it seemed that John wanted to kill his former friend with this news. He got up from his bed and went to the door. "John, wait," he said to him. "When you get better or when you're discharged, we'll talk to you again," the doctor said through gritted teeth and left. He tried not to think about that patient anymore because he didn't want to think about the past. Everything was fine now, and he was glad that he had met this man and got rid of the tattoo he had on his arm because he was not his friend. A few months later, John was in his office. He was sitting in his chair again, marking something in his journal. There was a knock on the door. "Come in," he said. A stout man, well-dressed, entered the office, and as he approached the desk, John saw that it was Austin. "Hello," said the visitor. "I don't get it," said the head doctor. "I told you it's a long story." "Yeah, back in the 90s I went down a crooked path. I got into racketeering, but because I had money, a merchant borrowed a decent sum from me. Then he couldn't pay me back, so he had to give me his house and land. I'd also had some business, restaurants, cafes. I had money and was spinning. So I came up, I guess you could say by accident. In that case with your daughter, I myself could never forget, because in the morning I thought I would forget everything, but I remembered everything. But at the same time, I realized I'd never find that girl anywhere. I was waiting for a report to be filed, for people to look for me, hiding for a while, then I calmed down," Austin said. He looked at the carafe of water, stood up, poured himself a glass. "I'm not interested in any of your stories," John told him. "No, you listen to it. And you can imagine, now my friends have made me a birthday present, where they take away everything from you for 3 days, money, phone, clothes, and let you go on the streets of the city. You sleep wherever you want, earn money. And it just so happens that right now I'm feeling sick. Well, passers-by called an ambulance, and you saved me again." He looked at the doctor. "Austin, I don't want to talk to you," John muttered. "Why did you do that?" He rolled up the sleeve of his jacket and shirt. "Austin, because I'm not your friend and you're not my friend at all," he told him. "Okay, you said I had a son, so he must be a decent age," the man said. "Yes, he's in medical school. He's following in my footsteps. He's dating the girl now, and they live with me," John said without looking up at the man who was in the office. "I want to meet him and have a talk with him." Austin looked at his friend. "I don't think you should do that, because the boy doesn't know anything and doesn't want to know it," suggested the head doctor. "Well, at least you can look at him from afar. Ask the one who once did something evil." "I don't want you to come close to my family at all, and don't do anything at all. Disappear from our lives," Kalash told him. "Okay, here's the card. Pass it." He hesitated. "Harry," John told him. "Yeah, give it to Harry. It's a little over $200,000. Let them buy an apartment or something. Maybe before God, this will make up for what I've done." He put the plastic card on the table. "But I won't say who it's from." John didn't refuse to give up the money his children needed. Sure, Austin agreed with him. He wanted to talk about something else, but the doctor showed him to the door. Then the man walked out of the office without question. John returned home. He didn't know how to present the card to his grandson, and he didn't want to tell his daughter. He thought for a long time and then called everyone into the kitchen, as they usually did. "I want to announce something." He looked at his grandson. "Speak already. Why these introductions?" Cindy took his hand. She could see how worried he was. "I've been saving for a long time, and here," he put the card on the table. "Here you have for the apartment and the wedding." "Where did you get so much?" His wife and daughter looked at him. "I told you I was saving." John looked at Nadejda. She realized that it was necessary to shut up. "Will you marry me, my love?" Harry realized that it was the right moment. The whole family was gathered. He had the ring with him. He had money for the wedding. "Yes," the girl smiled. "I love you." He put the ring on her finger. In the evening, as Cindy and John were getting ready for bed, the wife couldn't help but ask her husband the truth he was carrying around, and it was weighing on him. He was the one who had hurt Anna. He didn't want to bring it up again. "What? How did you recognize him?" His wife made big eyes. "Anna told me about the tattoo, and I knew this man," he told his wife. "How did it happen?" She clutched her heart. "I was in the conscript service." He shared his story with her. "Wow, what a story." Cindy couldn't believe her ears. "Now you can imagine how angry I was during the surgery. But I did nothing and saved him again." John spoke in a whisper. "I understand," she shook her head. "You just don't tell Anna or Harry." He put his finger to his lips. "Of course you do." She crossed herself. They went to bed, and Harry and Christy discussed how they would do the wedding and in what neighborhood they would buy an apartment. When everything was ready, the beautiful bride stood with her groom in front of the registrar. After they went to the restaurant, did not, like grandmother and mother, to do everything modestly. While they were sitting at the table, John's phone rang. He took it out. There was an unfamiliar number on the screen. "Hello," he said into the receiver. "Kalash, I promised, I'm not coming closer." "There's a present for the young ones outside," the man said to him. "What's there?" the man wondered. "When you come out, you'll see," Austin said, and hummed up. "I just got a call that some well-wisher gave you a present." John got up from the table. What kind of gift? And what kind of well-wisher? They didn't understand. When they were outside, everyone's jaw dropped. There stood a car, a nice foreign car, tied with a ribbon. "Thank you," Harry said. "We're welcome," Anna said. Just Harry smiled, thinking to himself that his parents had bought them this gift because they had money for an apartment. The wedding was over. The young ones had chosen an apartment, bought it. Now they moved out of their parents' place. "We love it. It seems that it's time for us to buy real estate," Anna said to Max in the evening before going to bed. "Are you right to move out of your parents?" He was surprised. "Well, if my son has already moved out of our house, it's high time for me," she laughed. In the following weeks, they chose what to buy and where to buy it. John helped them with everything, just like before. "I hate to say goodbye to you," Cindy cried on the doorstep. "Mommy, it's not like we're going to another country forever." Anna smiled and hugged her. After everyone left, the house was quiet. But on weekends, as usual, everyone gathered in the kitchen, talked, drank tea, and ate pies.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.